I've been reviewing cars for a very, very long time, although there are absolutely no videos of me sporting a wonky fringe and some rather questionable choices of outfit here on YouTube as a constant reminder of that. Honestly, none whatsoever. So don't bother looking. But what that means is that I've driven loads of cars, big and small, good and bad, V8s and hydrogen, and I seem to have settled on electric. Why? I guess I just find them exciting. I love the fact that they're new and shiny and different. I love their tech, their quirky designs. I love their potential. Of course, I also love the fact that they're good for the air that my son breathes. But most of all, I just think they're different. Well, most of them are. Because in the weird world of marketing, not being different is the Audi e-tron's main selling point. It's deliberately normal. It looks like an Audi, feels like an Audi, drives like an Audi. In fact, you might miss the fact that it's a pure electric SUV without having a proper look. So, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, before I tell you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you click on that little bell icon, you'll get a notification when our latest video has landed. And of course, you can follow us on all the usual social channels. Let's get back to normal, the definition of which is conforming to a standard, usual, typical or expected. Yep, fits the bill. The e-tron is the car for those of us who don't want to be different, and there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean it isn't striking. It's a good-looking car that fits well into Audi's vast SUV range, somewhere between the Q5 and the Q7. It has all the Audi features we love, like the fabulous lights, plush interior, commanding road presence, and the feeling that it's full of expensive engineering, but very little to set it apart as an electric car. In fact, the only telltale that this is an EV is the dual charging ports, one on either side, which are, incidentally, an utterly brilliant piece of convenient design engineering. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that this is the most interesting part of the car. As you might guess from its generous dimensions, the e-tron is pretty spacious. 7 seats aren't an option, which does give the Tesla Model X an advantage. They're not stuff like the Jag I-Pace or the Mercedes EQC. But you won't have any reason to complain about space for the driver. 4 passengers or all their luggage. Head and legroom in the back are excellent, which means that even taller adults don't feel cramped. So far, so good. And here in the front, wow. It's an Audi, isn't it? Audi's virtual cockpit is right there in front of me. You've got those familiar dual screens. The voice activation works well and everything can be controlled from the steering wheel. It's very familiar, unthreatening, and yes, I'm going to use that word again, normal. The only slight differences are this open centre console with a handrest, useful when you're on the move, and a little electric symbol in the spot you'd normally find your fuel info. You also get information about your range and your consumption, again just as you normally would, only this time you're working it out in kilowatt hours. It's pretty good in all other respects too. Nice materials, interesting options. You can have some functions enabled via the My Audi app, and a pretty good basic list of kit including Audi Presense and a 360-degree parking camera. There's electric everything, leather, all the stuff you might expect. And all of that comes with the basic Technic trim level. There are no complaints around at the boot either, which is larger than that of the I-Pace and the Mercedes EQC. So what's powering the e-tron? Well, this is where things start to get very interesting, particularly with this car, because whilst the e-tron 55 has got a really hefty battery and a very usable range of up to 223 miles, this, the e-tron 50, hasn't. As you know, all kind of things have gone wonky in 2020, but apparently there are battery cell supply issues, which means that Audi's first all-electric car has been decapacitated. Hold on, it's not quite as dramatic as it sounds. Yes, you get 71.2 kilowatt hours to be precise, along with a claimed range of around 190 miles. Claimed being the operative word in that sentence. In my experience, the most range I've managed to pump into an e-tron 50 is 161 miles. I managed a just about acceptable 220 miles from the 55, and that was pushing its usability. Now, this is a big car that you probably want to use for big car things, not just mooching about town in. Now, I completely get small batteries when they're in a small car like the Mini Electric. That has a small battery. It's very quick to top up. You don't expect to do longer journeys in it. And this is where my problems really start with the e-tron 50. So this is a large family SUV. And if you're buying one of those, surely you expect to be able to put the family in it and take longer journeys, which you can't without an awful lot of faff. Sure, you can stop to charge on the way, but it takes charge so slowly unless you can find a very rare 150 kilowatt charger. Fancy 90 minutes at a crowded service station on a really hot bank holiday weekend whilst the kids are all arguing and disagreeing with each other? No? Yeah, me neither. So that really does beg the question, what is this car's purpose? Now, I've thought long and hard about that, and the answer is actually very simple. It's a second car. It's a car for the school run, a commuting tool, a rather expensive tool. It doesn't really work or make sense as anything else, and I'm just not sure you need something as big as this for those jobs. Other than that gripe, which I admit is a fairly major one, it's actually quite enjoyable to drive. Normal even. It's just shy of 2.5 tonnes because all the weighty bits underneath haven't been developed with an EV in mind, so have had to be adapted from the Q7, and that's always going to mean there are compromises. But despite that, it handles well, and whilst it's not as enjoyable to drive as a Jaguar I-Pace or the Tesla Model X, it's not all that bad. So it's got two motors, all-wheel drive, and the power distribution feels really even and balanced, although it does feel pretty heavy behind the wheel. The I-Pace definitely has a lightness about it that this doesn't have, but the Audi is a family SUV and it drives like one. Just don't expect to take the family very far in it. What is impressive though is how refined, comfortable and quiet it is. Oh, look, I fully get that it sounds a little bit silly to call an EV quiet. It's what they are, right? But when you're on the move, you can be far more aware of wind and road noise, along with that whine from the electric motors. And it can be quite annoying. But the e-tron is extremely well insulated. It's really hushed. It's really impressive, actually. It's also pretty fast, enough. Don't get overexcited. It might have 309 horsepower, but as I've said before, this is no lightweight. So it's not exactly mind-bending when it comes to speed, but it's plenty to cope with normal driving, and you do have plenty of control over the throttle, with the motors coping really well with things like hill starts, which can often be tricky for electric cars to handle. When it comes to charging, the e-tron has the potential to do it very quickly. It's capable of charging at speeds of up to 150 kilowatts, faster than the Mercedes EQC's maximum charging capacity of 110 kilowatts. At that rate, it'll take the battery to 80% capacity in around half an hour. The problem, though, is that the 150 kilowatt chargers are currently few and far between in the UK, so you'll have to rely on 50 kilowatt units while you're out and about for the time being. That will mean a top-up time of more like 90 minutes, whilst charging at home on a standard 7 kilowatt wall charger will take around 13 hours. Ouch. Now, one thing that helps with the range is regeneration. That's putting the braking energy the car creates back into the battery. And if you're familiar with a car that uses this, you'll know that the brakes can feel quite grabby. However, the e-tron doesn't really do that much at all. I guess it's just another example of how far Audi has gone to make sure that it feels, here's that word again, normal as possible. I think that actually is a bit of a shame. It's a characteristic of electric cars that I personally really like, and I know a lot of other people do too. I enjoy that one-pedal driving feel, and it just feels a bit old school, a bit old-fashioned to have to use the e-tron's brake pedal when you want to slow down. And it's always good to know it's there, but I'm not sure I expect to do that these days. I know, I've moaned a lot, but you know, I genuinely do like the e-tron. I think it's a handsome, desirable car. I just don't really see the point of this particular model. You know, it's a heavy SUV that really only works as a second car. The more expensive e-tron 55 with its more usable range, I completely get. It's not the most efficient of electric cars, but it does work for family driving. But this one, it's a bit like having a very thirsty petrol or diesel with a teeny tiny little tank. It's just a bit infuriating, and it's different for all the wrong reasons. If you like the idea of the Audi e-tron, then also check out Nicki's video of the Tesla Model X, along with my video of the Jaguar I-Pace. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.